Hello everyone, and today, like I said in our last video, we're going to be talking about Branded Thunder Dragons. Again, one of my favorite decks, virtually of all time. I love Thunder Dragons, I've been playing them since they came out, and the branded cards have brought a lot more depth to the deck. Now, unfortunately, the pure Thunder Dragon decks aren't as viable at the moment because of the Buster Lock being banned, with Union Carrier being put on the ban list, which is super unfortunate. I did like playing the pure version as well, but I feel like the branded version definitely is not only super powerful, but also sort of helps bring a lot of homage to that. It cuts out a lot of the excess cards that you'll find on occasion didn't do anything. We got a couple of really cool lanes of play as well, as I've been experimenting a little bit more with the deck. This is the actual list we've been using. You don't have to use this list exactly. We're going to be covering off the list at the end of the video, a full card for card deck profile. Like I said in the previous video, we're looking at sort of which rogue strategies are doing better or doing worse in the new metagame with sprites being around, and I feel like this is one of the decks that are just doing so much better. Sprites just cannot handle the Colossus, they just can't do it, and you can bring it out. Basically, again, so the way this deck works is not only can your Branded Fusion, it can set up your whole Mirror Jade and Branded in Red and your Ad Libitum. It can do all of that, of course it can, like it can in any branded deck. But what it can also do is set up turn 1 with a Colossus and a Dragostapelia on your field instead, and that's opening up just Branded Fusion. If you open up Branded Fusion and virtually any way to either put your Thunder Dragon Dark into your graveyard or to banish it prior to using your your Branded Fusion, it gets even better. It gets nuts at that stage, right? But even just a single Branded Fusion, one card is able to set up a Colossus and your Dragostapelia, which I think is going to be one of the most consistent ways of playing the deck. You're able to play some really powerful cards in Shifter. You've got Veiler, Ash, you got Maxi, so much room for hand traps. I'm going to stop rambling about the deck right now. Make sure you watch the gameplay first of all, because we have a couple of really kooky lines of play that I do want people to see. Really fun. And sort of like working different things out. And I will be doing a card for card profile at the end, so stick through all the way through, watch to the end, and we'll be covering off the full thing. If you're interested in this style of content, these sorts of analysis, deck profiles, anything like this, or if you're interested in some of the other things that we do here, like streaming or sort of meta analysis, whatever it is that you find yourself carried towards, feel free to subscribe. You know, doesn't cost you anything, it helps me out. Every little bit of support does add up. We're looking to get to at least, I would say, 2,500 subs for the end of the year, and I think that's being generous. I think we can blow that number out of the water. We're already at what, just over 1,250, and we're coming up to, we're 3 months off of our first year doing YouTube, right? So we're sort of 9 months into the channel. I want to try and hit at least sort of 1,500 before that 1 year mark, right? I want to hit 1,500. That's the goal for the 16th of May. I feel like that's a super easy goal. We can hit that no problem. And you know what? You might even be able to hit something a little bit more adventurous, like 1,750. I'm going to stop rambling. I've been talking for 3 minutes already. Let's get into the gameplay. Just right before we get started, I am going to throw in here that all of these games you're about to see, they happened back to back on a singular win streak, the whole way through Diamond 5. So these aren't like cherry picking games. I literally picked up the deck, went into ranked, played 5 games, won all 5. Really good. So like, I just want to put that out there. We're not cherry picking or anything. We have a somewhat okay hand, right? Normally you're going to see 2 or 3 hand traps in your opening hand because we play so many of them, right? So we are able to hit this Microcoder with the Ash Blossom. That is a massive hit to most cyberspace strategies. If you can stop them, obviously they don't have like the circular in hand or anything like that, otherwise they would have used it. So hitting that Microcoder is going to hurt them a lot. During the end phase, it's also not a terrible idea if you have a Thunder Dragon Dark in hand to just pitch it to exchange it for another one. Just want to fill up your graveyard with as much useful material as possible, and you also don't want to draw into another Thunder Dragon Dark. So we've got a couple of sort of not so useful cards in our hand here. Luckily the Allure of Darkness is absolutely broken. You get to draw 2 and then banish any dark monster in your hand, so Dark gets banished. That of course triggers Thunder Dragon Dark's effect to grab your Hawk, so that's our Colossus setup, right? Now we don't need to worry about setting up Colossus off of Branded Fusion. We already have it. So we're going to go Branded Fusion. That is going to trigger their Maxi. So we have 2 choices here. We can just stick to the Branded Fusion plays, let them draw 2, or we can let them draw 4 and also go into the Colossus. And to be honest, after giving them what will essentially be 4 extra cards in exchange for what, not letting them search, I don't think that's really worth it, because they're probably going to have all the resources they need already. So we're just going to fusion summon off into Mirror Jade, the Ice Blade Dragon. Now we tried to banish his Code Talker inverted here, but we actually get hit with the Cyanide Conflict. I was kind of expecting that to be the card he was searching off of Microcoder, so I was a little bit surprised when it was his face down. But you know what? I'm honestly not that annoyed by it, because we can simply bring it back off of Ad Libitum. We don't care. It's actually brutal, the setup we have here. So we're going to let him have his turn. He's got 3 new cards in hand that we don't know about. He does draw into the Circular, so really good draw. You know, again, if you're drawing that many cards, you're bound to hit something useful. He is going to go Circular here. We're going to stop that off of our Infinite Impermanence. We also still have an Effect Veiler as well, which is also solid. He is going to Exceed Summon, so we could... what we could have done there is, before he summoned Sigma, it might also have been a good play to preemptively use the Branded in Red to pop the Circular. That was also a good play. But that's just not what we did, right? He's going to go Alimbertion here. We're now going to use our Effect Veiler, shutting down the Alimbertion as well. You're not getting Super Factorial, my friend. I simply will not allow it. I believe he goes into the battle phase here. He does indeed. That's where we're going to flip flop Branded in Red. We're going to grab back our Tragedy. We're going to fuse Tragedy, Ad Libitum, and our Aliber to bring out the Guardian Chimera. Guardian Chimera is going to pop 1, draw 2. Our Ad Libitum is going to resummon our Mirror Jade. Usually Tragedy would also search you a card, but we already have all of our Despia monsters, so there's nothing to search. We do grab back our Mirror Jade, we draw into Max C and Call by the Grave, and we pop his monster. So this hand is absolutely nuts. We could combo off, you know, we could go Colossus into Titan, into Aliber, into Branded Fusion, do all of these crazy plays, but you know what? We're not going to BM our friend here. We're just going to switch everything to attack mode, and we're going to take our win. 3,000, 18, and 33 to the face for game. Easy as that. We could literally have comboed off like crazy there. We could have gone Branded Fusion into the Dragstapelia, right? We could have gone Dragstapelia. We could have had Titan. We could have had Colossus. We could have had all of this crazy stuff. But you know what? He's had enough. Just gonna let it go. That's game number 1. Let's get into game 2. Already getting into game 2 here. Yet another iffy hand here. We're going to go for Branded Opening right off the bat here. Dropping an Ash for our Aliber. Aliber then grabbing us Branded Fusion. Luckily, our opponent didn't seem to have any hand traps here. Again, a Veiler and an Ash isn't exactly the best thing, but it can at least sort of protect you from getting destroyed. Lebellion's going to pitch our Allure of Darkness. We didn't really feel like we're going to be adding anything here. We're going to just stick to our Despian plays on this occasion. Again, this just shows you the power of a 1-card combo off of Branded Fusion. Able to set up our Mirror Jade, banishing our Aliber here to send our Albion to the graveyard. Albion then setting in our end phase, Branded in Red, directly to our field. So now we've got the Branded in Red as well as a Veiler and an Ash Blossom. So it looks like a bit of a weak field, but we also have some decent resources in our hand. Now our opponent chose to go second, right? So we knew that we're going to be playing something like this. I actually sort of figured it would be Numerons, but it turned out to be Sky Striker, so here we are. They're going to go into Hayate. Because they went into Hayate off of Linkage, I'm not too worried about popping their monster here, because it's not like they're going to be like reviving Array or anything. We're simply going to bring out the Chimera. We're going to activate its effect Chain Link 1, Tragedy Chain Link 2, and Ad Libitum Chain Link 3. They're going to go Forbidden Droplet, actually. They're going to pitch a Lava Golem into the graveyard, which I thought was a little bit wild. Because that would have outed our board, kind of. But at the same time, that you'll see later on, they want to use their normal summon. We're going to go in the Mirror Jade here. Tragedy is going to grab us an Aliber for a bunch of follow-up. Chimera is negated, really unfortunately, though. They're going to try drawing 2 cards off of their Triple Tactics talent. Really good card there, actually. Phenomenal card. We are going to negate it there. Negate the Pot of Greed. He's going to go in the battle phase. We're going to banish him. Pitching another Albion to banish our Hayate. He's going to go into Ray. That's why he did want to use the Lava Golem. He had the Ray in hand. He's going to go into Kagiri. Kagiri add back Linkage. We're like, you know what? That's not that big of a threat. That's whatever. Then he's going to go into Shizuku here, and Shizuku being able to grab something like Engage during the end of the turn is going to be a little bit bigger of a problem. So we decide, you know what, we're going to use our Veiler on that. We grab Branded Fusion from our deck off of Albion, and we are just set to get gaming. We draw into Dimension Shifter, which isn't a good card to draw into, but with the amount of things you discard in this deck, it literally doesn't matter. We grab Branded Opening, but we've worked so efficiently, we have no Despia monsters left to summon, so you know what, that's a free discard to us. It's still useful in the graveyard because it can protect your fusion monsters from destruction, so we're going to go into Dragstapelia here. Dragstapelia is going to put a wee counter on Shizuku, just, you know, for a giggle, why not? We're going to take out the Shizuku. That will trigger Ray in the graveyard. We knew that was going to happen. We swing in the Ray. He will tribute herself to summon out Kiana. Kiana's going to stop our Chimera for attacking for the rest of this turn, leaving our Mirror Jade to attack him directly for 3,000. He's got 3,900 life points left, and he's got one last turn to make something happen. He better draw into a good card here, and he does. He grabs the Sky Striker Widow Anchor, chaining to that their Linkage, which is a really solid play. Linkage then pitching the Widow Anchor to summon out Hayate while they steal my Dragstapelia. They're going to take out our monster here, taking out the Aliber. We're going to banish the Hayate off of Mirror Jade. Hayate can only be special summoned once per turn, so even if they do bring out their array and go into another Link monster, they are not going to be able to attack over us, not during this battle phase. So they're going to add back the Widow Anchor. Widow Anchor is a problem, but they can't use it so long as they have monsters in their main monster zone, which is why we waited to the battle phase to do anything. We knew in the battle phase, if we did it during the main phase, we would simply have been linked off into Zeke, and then, you know, it wouldn't have worked out because he wouldn't be able to use his card again, and not a good time, right? So by instead doing it in the battle phase, we stopped him from going on the offensive that turn. He does manage to get rid of our Chimera. That's whatever. We're gonna bring out our Aliber to negate him. Realistically, we ran out of time because our opponent just couldn't figure out how to play around our board. It was simply, he was too far gone. It was not possible. He was not going to win that game. So you know what? Timer ran out, and we take the easy dub. Let's get into game number 3. Already getting into game 3 here. I actually have a pretty interesting line of play I want to show you in this one. I'm not sure if I do it in this replay or the next one. We're going to go Branded Fusion. We're going to pitch, what did we send? We sent, oh no, it's not this one, must be the next replay, sorry. We're going to pitch our Effect Village here. We're going to activate Tragedy. Tragedy is going to grab an Aliber from our deck. Notice our Ad Libitum is already banished, right? So that means this Despian combo is already not the greatest. But it's still going to be better than nothing. This was the duel where I actually realized that the Branded Fusion could lead into Dragstapelia Colossus. I just sort of didn't piece it together in my head quite in this game yet, but in the next replay you're going to see that combo. We're going to go Secret Password here, grabbing the Sunny Snitch. Again, we're not even slightly worried about this. We got Crossout, we got Ash, we got Maxi, we got Branded in Red, even a suboptimal turn. Look at how much interruption we have. This is actually criminal. And don't forget, we've yet to use our Mirror Jade. We're going to go Maxi here. This gets Ash Blossom, and this is, people, let your chains resolve before you chain more hand traps. So we go Crossout Designator. We're going to negate Ash Blossom here. He's going to activate Sprite Starter. Why would you activate Sprite Starter in chain to a Crossout that's negating Ash Blossom? Do not do that. If your opponent activates Crossout, don't chain something to Crossout that they could then respond to with the card that they're designating off of their Crossout designator. That doesn't make sense, because then if I had this in hand, which is exactly what's happening, I now get to use my Ash Blossom before its effect is negated. So now Chainlink 6, first of all, which is really cool. Chainlink 6, my Ash Blossom resolves to negate his starter, then my Crossout resolves to negate his Ash Blossom. And he immediately just scoops, right? And I wanted to include this game not only because, you know, it shows off how much interruption we can put up turn 1, but I wanted that to be a lesson. If your opponent or you are activating Crossout Designator, don't chain a card to Designator or in the same chain that your opponent can respond to with the card that they're crossing out, because then they'll just do it. Is it going to happen every time? No. But it's definitely possible, and you need to remember that it is in fact something that can happen. So you know what, it just worked out really well for us. That's just the way it be sometimes. This last replay is going to show off that Dragstapelia combo I mentioned. Alrighty, getting into our fourth and final replay here, we're going to show off how Branded Fusion goes into our Colossus Dragostapelia. First of all, you need the Branded Fusion. You send Thunder Dragon Dark and you send your Fallen of Albaz, right? Fairly straightforward. You're going to activate now the Belion's effect, you're going to discard a card, you're going to fuse into Albion, the Branded Dragon. Albion has the effect where it's going to banish materials to fusion summon, so you're going to banish itself as well as your Thunder Dragon Dark in the graveyard. You're going to use those to bring out Predaplant Dragostapelia. That's going to trigger off your Thunder Dragon Dark's effect to search for your Thunder Dragon Hawk. Hawk's then going to discard itself to grab your Thunder Dragon Dark back out to the field, and you're going to tribute that to go into Colossus. And that's it. That's a one-card combo to bring out both of these. Now, we had a couple of not very useful cards in our hand, like Thunder Dragon Fusion and the Fallen of Albaz. So being able to play something like this off of a card that had essentially 2 bricks in it is pretty goddamn solid. I am not gonna lie, that is a good turn. Although our opponent just has Dark Ruler no more, they're gonna go Junk Converter, which I thought was pretty wild. We're gonna hit that Converter with Call by the Grave, abso-freaking-lutely. We are not for a second even gonna contemplate letting that thing resolve. That card is dangerous. Especially with our Stapelia negated. They're going to go Fateful Adventure. This was really cool. I wasn't expecting this. They're going to go Water Enchantress. They're going to dump the Water Enchantress off of this card here. Then they're going to banish it from the graveyard to grab their Rite of Aramis here. Adventure in Synchrons is already sus because of Junk Synchron then not being able to be used. But, I mean, it is what it is. Then they're just going to normal summon Jet to Synchro off in the Speeder, right? Synchro off in the Speeder, activate its effect. We are, of course, going to negate Speeder off of Veiler, obviously. So that is going to put his deck to sleep, basically. Junk Speeder is the one and only card you need to negate. That's what we would have saved our Stapelia for. He's going to summon out his Jet here. He's going to try and heal Miri into a Miracle card off the Charge Warrior, and he doesn't. Of course he doesn't. Like, what Miracle card do you draw into in Synchrons? There wasn't a card he could have drawn. Maybe there is. I don't know. If there is, I don't know it. But either way, I just wanted to show off that little Branded Fusion combo, of course, bringing out those 2 monsters off of a singular Branded Fusion. Of course, there are better situations for the deck, don't get me wrong, that's not like the end-all and be-all of what it does, but what I'm trying to say is just, you can put those out off of just one card. Pretty nuts. Let's get into the deck profile. Alright, so this is the deck that we were playing in the replays. This is the Branded Thunder Dragons we've been messing around with. We ended up cutting things like Small World and everything that just it wasn't really working out for us. But to be honest, this deck is just incredible. So first of all, we're going to remove all the hand traps and everything, just so you can get a clear idea of what it is we're actually dealing with. First of all, you've got the double effect Veiler, you've got the double Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, you've got double Ghost Spell and Haunted Mansion. Then we've got Dimension Shifter, which is like technically a hand trap slot, but you can, I think this guy is brutal in this deck. I'm actually going to keep him in his core. We're going to drop the double Max C, then we've got double Called By, single Crossout, and double Infinite Impermanence. So if you count the Dimension Shifter as a flex spot, then you've got 15 spots with which to do whatever you want, although I think Shifter is pretty damn important. I'm going to be real. So this is the deck list. Again, it's very clearly separated into Thunder Dragons and Despia, although the separation isn't quite as distinct with this deck as it is with most others. So there's 13 slots with which you can do absolutely whatever you want. The hand trap lineup we were doing is, again, it's protection in the form of Call by the Grave, as well as Crossout Designator. It gives us plenty of Crossout targets, and generally speaking, it just gives you a bunch of different cards. I will recommend playing at least one light monster in your hand trap lineup, be it Nibiru, be it Veiler, be it Gamma, whatever it is you decide to play. Make sure that at least one of them is light for your main combo. So we're getting into the deck list. We're going to talk about the Despia stuff first, so the Despia branded stuff. We've got Despia and Tragedy at 1 and Ad Libitum and Despia at 1 each, so these are one-ofs. Despia and Tragedy, when sent to the graveyard by a card effect or banished, will search your deck for any Despia monster and add it to your hand, so that's usually going to grab yourself an Ad Libitum. Ad Libitum then, when used as fusion material, is going to resummon either a Despia monster or one of your level 8 or higher fusion monsters from your graveyard or banish pad. So you're going to use this during your opponent's turn to resummon the likes of Mirror Jade back to your field. Off of your Branded Red combo, which again is a combo as old as Branded is. Everyone knows that by now. If you don't know that by now, you would have seen it in the gameplay. But no, pretty straightforward combo. Then we have Alaba the Jester of Despia. Alaba the Jester of Despia basically just searches your deck for a branded spell or trap card on summon. Most of the time branded fusion, although if you already have this, it can also grab yourself a branded in red or branded opening. So this guy basically just searches out one of your branded spells and traps on summon. Speaking of, we of course have the main card, I would say, of the entire deck, Branded Fusion, which allows you to fusion summon out one of your fusion monsters that lists specifically the Fallen of Albaz in its text by sending monsters from your hand or deck to the graveyard. So this is amazing. This will start your whole play. This card by itself is enough to facilitate both a Colossus and a Predaplant Dragstapelia, or it can set up a Mirror Jade alongside a Branded in red, simply by itself, which is absolutely amazing. So that's the Branded Fusion. You've got Branded Opening here. Discard a card to summon a Despia monster directly from the deck. Basically just think of Branded Opening as 2 extra copies of Alibur. Basically just special summons Alibur directly from the deck. You're very rarely going to pick one of these two. It also has a second effect where you can banish it from the graveyard to protect a fusion monster from destruction. So that does come up as well. So that is just an extra layer of protection for your fusion monsters, which is of course very useful. And lastly, we have Branded in red, which will allow you to grab a Despia or a Fallen of Albaz from your graveyard and add it to your hand. Then you can banish monsters from your hand or field in order to conduct a fusion summon. And as a quick play spell, it can be used during your opponent's turn. Most of the time you're going to be using this during your opponent's turn to summon out the likes of the Guardian Chimera to pop a bunch of cards and draw a bunch of cards, which is absolutely brutal. But you can also utilize it in a myriad of defensive ways as well. For example, protecting your Lubellion or Albion from being negated by a Veiler or a Infinite Impermanence. So there's definitely a number of ways in which this card can be used. And then we have 2 copies of the Fallen of Albaz, who is here strictly for its name. It serves no other purpose. Then we've got Keeper of Dragon Magic, which isn't innately a part of that engine, of course, but the entire point of this card is you can whenever it's summoned, you get to discard a card to grab a Polymerization or Fusion spell directly from your deck. So you get to grab Branded Fusion directly out to your deck from your hand. So to your hand from your deck. So it serves a very similar role to Alibur, although you do need to discard its cost. What it does provide as an additional benefit, however, is you get to resummon the Fallen of Albaz from your graveyard if you manage to, of course, have this in the grave whenever you summon this. So it means that you've at least got a lucrative discard target, and you can reuse the Fallen of Albaz. Plus, the effect of the Fallen of Albaz will allow you to sacrifice both itself and the Keeper of Dragon Magic to instantly fusion summon your Abolinatus, which can be fusion summoned even if the Fallen of Albaz is face down. So that's pretty handy. Basically just gets you an extra body if you have the Fallen of Albaz in grave, as well as grabbing you Branded Fusion. Then getting into the Thunder Dragon cards, we've got 3 Dark, 1 Hawk, 2 Roar. Roar is soon to be unlimited. This will be going to 3 copies. I wouldn't play 3 copies of it in this deck. I think 2 is fine. I very rarely even really use the Roar, to be honest. It's mainly the Dark or the Hawk we would use. But the Roar is a pretty decent card as well. I definitely wouldn't play it at 2. I'd be tempted to cut it to 1, to be honest, but it does serve a number of different purposes. Basically, going in order, you've got Thunder Dragon Dark, which... so again, to contextualize this for anyone who doesn't know how the Thunder Dragons work, they each have an effect that activates when you discard them, and they each have an effect that activates whenever they are banished or sent from field to graveyard. So Thunder Dragon Dark, as a quick effect, you can discard it to add another Thunder Dragon Dark directly to your hand from your deck, which is useful sometimes. Its main effect, however, is whenever it is either banished or sent from the field to the graveyard, you get to grab any Thunder Dragon related card from your deck to your hand. So you're going to be grabbing your Thunder Dragon Hawk, and that's going to facilitate your whole play. And this card is extremely easy to banish, and we're going to be talking about why. In fact, you've already seen why in the gameplay, so I don't even need to. Thunder Dragon Hawk, then, this card's main effect, you can discard it to special summon back one of your Thunder Dragon monsters that are either banished or in your graveyard. That is a vital effect, and we're going to talk about more why when it gets to the extra deck, but you absolutely must play this card. Thunder Dragon Roar has 2 main effects. One, you can discard it to add a Thunder Dragon card that is either banished or in your graveyard back to your hand, or if this card is banished or sent from field to graveyard, you get to special summon out any Thunder Dragon monster directly from your deck in defense, but it gets sent back to your hand at the end of the turn. So a decent way of recycling things, a decent way of making a bit of progress, and special summoning out a monster directly from deck to maybe utilize its effect as well. Then we've got Allure of Darkness. I kind of count this as part of the Thunder Dragon engine, but it is also useful alongside your Despian cards, of course. Allure of Darkness, basically draw 2 and then banish the Dark monster in your hand. Phenomenal for activating the effects of your Roar and your Dark directly from hand. Usually when you see Allure of Darkness and one of your Thunder Dragons, you're in business. That is a killer hand if you see those. Absolutely. Then we've got Thunder Dragon Fusion. You will shuffle back from your field, graveyard, or banish pile the fusion materials required for one of your Thunder Dragons. You will almost exclusively use this card for Thunder Dragon Titan, and even then, it's not really because you want Titan, it's only because you want an extra way to shuffle Colossus back into your extra deck, which we will again get to when we're talking about the extra deck. But this just helps you shuffle a few things back, recycle materials. It also has a second effect where on the following turn after it was sent to the graveyard, or on any turn except the turn it was sent to the grave, you get to banish it to grab any Thunder Dragon or any Thunder monster from your deck to your hand, which is useful on occasion. It's not as useful in this version of the deck because we don't play too many different Thunders, but it is something that you should bear in mind. It is pretty decent. And then we have Gold Sarcophagus, yet another card that works for both engines. Gold Sarc can of course trigger your Roar or your Dark directly from the deck, which makes it a phenomenal card. But it can also technically trigger your Tragedy as well, which means it does have that element of flexibility. Gold Sarc is basically just one of the god cards of the deck, where you just turn this into any card in your deck you want to grab anything from your deck, which is pretty solid. So that's the main deck. The main deck is fairly cohesive. It's really straightforward. It's really just about trying to turbo a Branded Fusion and grab your Hawk. That is your like full play, right? And that's how you're gonna just get the comboing off. And the reason you're able to do so with so little resources is because of your extra deck and the way this is built. So we're going to go through this here card for card. Card number 1, of course, Predaplant Dragostapelia is a phenomenal monster. First of all, quick effect, you can target a monster your opponent controls and give it a Predator counter. And so long as this card is face up, any monster with a Predator counter has its effects negated. Which is very powerful. Its fusion materials though are the main reason we use it. Fusing together a fusion monster alongside any dark monster means not only is this guy a very powerful monster to have on your field, but the fusion material requirements for him allow you to make some really funky plays when it comes to facilitating your Thunder Dragons. So Dragostapelia, absolutely mandatory. You've got the one of Thunder Dragon Colossus, which is of course one of your boss monsters. So long as this card is face up, your opponent cannot add cards from their deck to their hands except by drawing them. So that means they're not going to be able to search their deck for cards. They're not going to be able to sprite blue. They're not going to sprite jet. They're not going to activate any of their searching cards, which is the big thing, right? That's why this deck is picking up its utility in the current meta, because you're seeing a lot of Exosisters. So no more packs. You're seeing a lot of sprite, no more jets, no more blues. So there's quite a lot of things in there, like no more, like take the Tri-Brigade version, you can't use your Naval to grab your Karaz anymore. So there's quite a lot of things that Thunder Dragon Colossus shuts down, which is excellent. As well as that, it can also banish Thunder monsters from your graveyard in order to protect itself from destruction. So not only is it a major floodgate, it's also a little bit difficult to get rid of at times. So definitely very powerful card and extremely easily accessible in this deck. Then we got 2 copies of Albion the Branded Dragon. I would say you need to for this version, absolutely. Not only is it useful for its typical effect of being sent to the graveyard, but this card is actually the key pivotal starter in your main combo. So Albion, I think you do need 2 of this card, to be perfectly honest with you. You can maybe get away with 1, but I think 2 is better. So when this card is fusion summoned, you get the fusion summon again by banishing monsters from your hand, field, and graveyard. Which basically gives you another fusion, which is definitely key. And then during the end phase of the turn, if this card was sent to your graveyard that turn, you can add to your hand or set to your field a branded spell or trap card. So you're going to typically be setting branded in red to your field so you can use it during your opponent's turn. So it has a lot of versatility. The fusion summon, of course, is one of the main effects we use it for, but the secondary effect here of setting a branded spell or trap is of course busted as well. We got Despian Coritis, which you don't need this. I have it here. I don't think I've summoned it in the testing most recently. It's a fallback option on the off chance you don't have the Fallen of Albaz, so it is useful on occasion. I would definitely recommend playing either this or Masquerade, this one here. So I will play one or the other depending on which one you like more. I just like Coritis a little bit more, in my opinion. I think if you're not going to be playing them as a main strategy, and if it is just more of a backup engine, then the utility of the Masquerade sort of diminishes a little bit, right? But again, it is ultimately up to you and what you prefer. Then we got the 2 copies of Mirror Jade. Mirror Jade is, of course, big boss monster. Everybody knows what Mirror Jade is. Very, very common, very, very popular, and very powerful. You can send one of your branded dragons from your extra deck to the graveyard, so your Albion, Lebellion, whatever, and then you can banish a monster in the field non-targeting, and you can do that once every 2 turns. Then during the end phase of the turn in which it was sent to the graveyard by your opponent, you can destroy all monsters your opponent controls, both of which are absolutely busted effects. So Mirror Jade, definitely a huge asset to have in the corner of Thunder Dragons. Lebellion acts in a sort of similar vein to your Albion. On summon, you get to discard a card to conduct an additional fusion summon. By this time, instead of banishing, you're going to be shuffling back into your deck monsters on your field, graveyard, or banish pile. So you shuffle back to fuse with Lebellion, whereas with Albion you banish. In this deck in particular, we're going to be chaining one into the other. I'm going to talk about that combo in just a moment, but this basically just gives you an extra fusion summon, which is dope. We've got Alba Lunatus, the Abyss Dragon. Not a card you're going to use a lot. I really like it in the deck at least one, because of the keeper play. That at least gives it some level of utility. It is also a perfect card at getting rid of Dragon Link and such. How does it actually work though? Well, you can fusion summon this essentially like contact fusion, like the Neospecians, by sending to your graveyard. Is it sending to your graveyard? I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah. So you send from the field to the graveyard, and it's anywhere on the field, including your opponent's field. Send the Fallen of Albaz and any number of other dragon monsters from the field to the graveyards, and you can summon this card out, and he gains attacks against the monsters up to the number of monsters that were sent to the graveyard for its fusion summon. So it's excellent at wiping out Dragon Link boards because you don't need to activate a Chain Link or anything like that. You're essentially just kaijuing. So if you're playing against dragons, it is of course extremely powerful. Its main sort of effect in most cases is going to be the fact that whenever it's in the graveyard during the end phase of a turn, you can grab Polymerization or a Fusion normal spell and add it to your hand. So you will be able to grab the likes of Branded Fusion as follow-up. But having the extra body that can be very easily summoned off of the Keeper of Dragon magic does occasionally have its benefits, I'm going to be honest. It does come up here and there. Then we have the Guardian Chimera, fused together using 3 monsters with different names, at least one of which has to be on your field and one of which has to be in your hand. When it's summoned, you will destroy cards on your opponent's field up to the number of monsters on your field that were used as material, and you will draw cards up to the number of cards that were used in your hand as material. So if 2 monsters on your field and 1 in the hand was used, pop 2, draw 1. If you had 1 in the field and 2 in the hand, pop 1, draw 2. Pretty straightforward, not that complicated of a card. 3300 attack, and the fact that you can summon it during your opponent's turn using Branded in Red, which is the main draw of the card, gives you significant amount of interruption, comboing it alongside of the likes of Ad Libitum and Thespian Tragedy to just further accrue an absolute ton of advantage. We got Thunder Dragon Titan, which is mainly here, to be honest, if they manage to get rid of your Colossus somehow. Really, we're only playing Titan so that we can shuffle Colossus back into our extra deck as material to fusion summon this card off of our Thunder Dragon Fusion. It is a 3200 body. It can occasionally pop cards, not nearly as consistently as it would in an actual Thunder Dragon deck. But it can occasionally do so. It can protect itself from destruction by banishing cards from the graveyard, so it's basically a way to recycle back Colossus while also being a very difficult to destroy 3200 attack beater. And it's pretty much as simple as that. And then we have an extremely small link package, IP Masquerena, Predaplant Verte Anaconda, and Nightmare Unicorn, all just generic link monsters that are all kind of useful. You will almost never use any of those monsters, almost never. And I say almost because there has been 1 or 2 games where I've perhaps had a Thunder Dragon Dark on my field, and I've wanted to be able to get rid of it to trigger its effect, but maybe I haven't been able to, right? So these cards are mainly here to fill that little niche of like when you can't get rid of things like your Thunder Dragon Dark, but by no means or stretch of the imagination are these cards necessary. You don't even have to play any link monsters. If you want, you can play additional fusions. If you want to play maybe Masquerade as well, you sort of do whatever for those last 3 slots. I just like having the versatility of the extra link monsters, but that's just me. And that is the full deck list. Let me throw the full list back up on your screen here. and we'll have a look over the whole thing. But no, the deck list is supremely straightforward, so it is. Once you're sort of playing it, you'll get to know. If you watch the gameplay before cutting to the end here, because I know some people just skip to the end, if you watch the gameplay, you would have seen a lot of the combos, especially in Game 4, when we did the Branded Fusion combo I talked about. So whenever you're sort of going first, you've got two real options. You want to be getting into Branded Fusion as quick as you can, and you want to be using it to bring out, hopefully, your Dragostapelia as well as your Thunder Dragon Colossus. That's going to be your main play. So what you do with the Branded Fusion is you are going to send from your extra deck, your deck to the graveyard, your Thunder Dragon Dark and your Fallen of Albaz. That's going to summon out your Lubellion the Searing Dragon. Now Lubellion the Searing Dragon's effect is going to activate. You're going to shuffle back into your deck both at the Fallen of Albaz as well as Lubellion the Searing Dragon to summon out Albion the Branded Dragon. Now Albion the Branded Dragon can banish itself as well as the Thunder Dragon Dark that's now in your graveyard to fusion summon out Predaplant Dragostapelia. That's going to trigger the effect of Thunder Dragon Dark to search your deck for any Thunder Dragon card. You're going to grab Thunder Dragon Hawk because you can activate a Hawk's effect in hand, discard it to re-summon the Thunder Dragon Dark that you banished, and then you can sacrifice your Dark to simply special summon out the Thunder Dragon Colossus. So it is as easy as that. Super simple combo off of just your Branded Fusion to go into your Dragostapelia plus Colossus. And then realistically, you're only really doing that play as if you have nothing else in hand or no other way to go into your Colossus as it is. If you already have a way to go in the Colossus, then you're just going to do your regular Branded Fusion combo where you summon out Mirror Jade and do your Tragedy and all of that fun stuff. But if you've no way to get into the Colossus without using your Branded Fusion, there is a way for you to do it off of just this one card. And having that flexibility is important, you know. One of the biggest feelings of many branded combinations is that there's not really a one card way of doing exactly what the deck wants to do, and then it just comes off as feeling like a weaker branded Despia deck, you know what I mean? Whereas this deck feels like it has an identity, feels like it's as powerful or at least different enough from branded Despia to compete in its own unique fashion. So absolutely massive fan of this deck. It's doing super well in the meta right now, to be honest, with how many slots it has for hand traps, with how you're able to play things like Dimension Shifter, with how you're banishing cards without targeting, and the Colossus shutting down sprites massively, Tri-Brigades, not able to search for their Revolt, not able to search for Caress, not able to search off of their blue, off of their jet, not able to do all of these things. Really does hurt these top decks at the minute very hard. It hurts them a lot. Even against other decks, you think about Math Mechs, you're not allowed to search for Factorial, you're not allowed to search for your extra monsters off of Wicked and everything. So no, it does. It gets pretty damn oppressive very quickly, especially considering it's not by itself. It's got a Stapelia backing up, it's got a Mirror Jade backing it up, it's got a million hand traps backing it up. So no, it really is a blast. I'm going to stop rambling because I've already been talking for the last 20 odd minutes. So if you've got this far into the video and you haven't subscribed yet or haven't liked the video, then I don't know what you're doing. You might as well. You've obviously liked something to get this far into it, so I would appreciate a little bit of support. And with that, I'm simply going to end it here. I'll see you on the next one.